Based on 20-year historical returns, earn 11 to 14% by diversifying on an IUL policy. In this episode, I'm going to address how to diversify using 1 year, 2 year, and even 5 year point-to-point IUL indexing strategies. You're going to be blown away with historical returns between 11 to 14%. By the end of this episode, you will understand this better than 99% of financial advisors, I assure you. So, I'm Doug Andrew. I've been doing this for more than 4.5 decades. I started in 1974. Helping people optimize assets and minimize taxes and save for long-term goals like retirement. When people ask me, what's your favorite financial vehicle for a comfortable retirement so people will not outlive their money? Without question, it's a maximum funded indexed universal life insurance contract. And many people have 10, 12, 15 of them because they learn how to diversify into superior vehicles. Diversification, having your eggs in many baskets, does not mean you put your eggs in inferior baskets like money in a bank or credit union earning less than 1% interest. That is not smart. So in this episode, stay with me. I'm going to sort of frame things here at the beginning, but stay with me to the end. I want to gift you a copy of my most recent best-selling book called The LASERFUND, 300 pages of information. But get ready. I'm going to start with the milk and then end up sort of with the meat. So I call a max-funded IUL, structured correctly and funded properly, a laser fund. LASER is an acronym that stands for Liquid Asset Safely Earning Returns. And I compare the laser fund to a financial Swiss Army knife because it has so many different uses. It's like the dream solution for many financial goals. And a lot of people will come and use it just for the death benefit. But most people would come to me to use it to accumulate money tax-free and then be able to access the money tax-free during retirement. And then when they ultimately died, it would blossom and transfer income tax-free to their heirs. This was for retirement planning, and structured correctly, it knocks the socks off of most IRAs and 401ks. But it can be used for college savings, for working capital, for a business, for a real estate management, for an emergency fund, a lump sum capital transfer, estate planning, pension maximization if you're a school teacher or a police officer, general tax reduction. So search this channel, Three Dimensional Wealth. I have episodes that talk about all of these applications, and I would recommend you subscribe. Why? Because it's free, and I post an in-depth answer to a financial question almost on a daily basis. And as I proceed, if you can think of somebody that would benefit, be sure and share, click like, post a comment, okay? So I often will ask my audiences when I speak across the country, what are some uses for baking soda? Well, usually the women will say, well, you can soak in the tub, you take the odor out of the refrigerator, it takes the pop out of a pot of beans and so forth. And then the men will say, well, I clean my battery terminals with it. Yeah. And then somebody will go, oh, baking soda, it's good for baking. Yeah, the obvious. Well, that's how I compare an insurance contract. Don't focus on what it is. A lot of times people say, well, I don't need insurance. Well, look at what it does, okay? Focus on what it does. When I would show them how they could put money in an IRA or 401k, in a mutual fund, in municipal bonds, in annuities, all kinds of different alternatives, and then we would start taking out income based on actual historical rates of return, all of those investments would run out of money, crash and burn before their life expectancy. A max-funded indexed universal life policy is the only one that would go on till they were age 120 without running out. And they would go, oh, yeah, I want the one on the right on this sheet of paper. And then I would say, do you know what that is? That's an insurance policy. Oh, I don't need insurance. Well, okay, quit focusing on what it is, focus on what it does. If you don't want the death benefit if you happen to die, make me the beneficiary. And they go, well, no, we want what it does. well then quit getting hung up on what it is, okay? So, in a nutshell, you can learn on this channel how, clear back in 1980, E.F. Hutton was the original brainchild behind the emergence of universal life. They realized under Section 72E, 7702, and 101A, money inside of a life insurance policy accumulates tax-free, 72E. You can access the money even before the age of 59 and a half for retirement or whatever, tax-free under 7702. And when you ultimately die, anything left in there blossoms, increases in value, and transfers income tax-free in a death benefit under Section 101A. Nothing else I'm aware of does that. But see, most people would buy insurance for death benefit back then. Hutton said, what are we thinking? Let's use it for living tax-free income benefits. And so they introduced universal life, where you could take the least amount of insurance the IRS would let you get away with, so to speak, and put in the most money the IRS allows as fast as they allow, and it turns into a tax-free cash cow. To where if you had $1 million, it can generate 70, 80, 100,000 a year of tax-free income if you live to be 120 without running out of money. Most IRAs and 401ks can't do that. There were 3 tax citations passed back in the 1980s, TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. Now, those are acronyms, but they're tax citations that basically tell you you have to have a commensurate amount of life insurance attached to the account, or it will not be tax-free under these sections of the code. TAMRA says in order to have tax-free income, you have to fund it over 5 installments or 4 years in 1 day. So let me explain that. TEFRA and DEFRA says you have to have insurance, but it's a lower amount as you get older. So the actual cost of insurance gets cheaper as you get older when you structure it correctly. Have you ever seen an insurance policy that gets cheaper as you get older? Then you haven't seen one structured right under TEFRA and DEFRA. TAMRA says you have to spread out the funding over 4 years in 1 day if you're over age 50 approximately, in order to have tax-free access. So I compare this to like a bucket as a metaphor. So if an IUL policy is a bucket, because IUL was introduced in 1997 when interest rates started coming down, and you link your return to an index. I'll show you that in just a second. So if this bucket is your repository, your insurance policy, you want to be grandfathered, so to speak, to put in as much money as you think you might want to without having the insurance company have to refund it, okay? So let's say you're 60 years old and you want to reposition 100,000. Now it could be 500,000, it could be $1 million, it could be 10 million. But under TEFRA and DEFRA, if you're 60 years old and a male, if you want to be able to put in $100,000 into this, you would have to have about 2.5 times that in insurance. Now you can buy way more life insurance than that with 100 grand. That's not the objective. Your objective is to have the least amount of insurance the IRS will let you get away with, so this 100,000 grows tax-free. So it's about 2.5 times that. TAMRA says, well, if you put in the whole 100,000 in one fell swoop, it will grow tax-deferred. But if you want to take out tax-free income, you have to spread it out. And it's usually about 20% a year. So you put in this example, about 20,000 the first day of the first year, 20,000 the first day of the second year, third year, fourth year. So after 4 years and 1 day, the first day of the 5th year, you put in the last 20,000 and now you've complied with TAMRA. What does that mean? That means that 100,000, if you just let it sit and grow, I've had clients do this for years and they've averaged, 9.6%. Rule of 72, your money will double every 7.5 years. So 100,000 doubles to 200,000 in 7.5 years. Another 7.5, it doubles to 400. 400 doubles to 800,000 and so forth. I've had many people that have done this and they end up with $1 million or more tax-free at the time in life they're going to now use that money. And $1 million can generate at 9.6%, 96,000 a year or 8 grand a month of tax-free income without depleting principal. But many people earn more than that, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So with indexing that was introduced in 1997, let's say you have $1 million in your IUL policy And the insurance company is only earning, let's say, 5% interest on that money because interest rates are low. They put your money where? AAA, AA bonds, mortgages on shopping malls and skyscrapers. And so back in the 1980s, they were earning 11.75% to 15.5%. And they paid me that much on my universal life policies. But then interest rates started coming down in the 90s. So they introduced indexed universal life. This is not an index mutual fund. Okay, your money's at risk in the market with an index mutual fund. Indexing is a strategy. So if they're earning 5%, they usually need one of those percentage points for them. And so the net return might be 4. So on $1 million in a year, they could pay me $40,000. It's tax-free. I can take it out. It's tax-free. I can let it compound and grow. Now I have $1,040,000 that's growing the next year. But if I feel bullish about America, I can link to an index or indices of my choice that they offer. And a lot of these insurance companies offer 10, 12, 15 indices. What's an index? Like the S&P 500, Standard & Poor's 500, the Dow Jones, the Russell 2000, the Barclays US Dynamic Balance Index, okay? Now, when you link to an index, you're not telling the insurance company to risk your million in the market. Your million has to stay safe in the insurance company earning 4 in this example. What you're giving up or relinquishing is the 4% interest on your million, the 40 grand. They don't have to keep that on hand. You're letting them use that, and they are going to fund an options budget so that they'll have the wherewithal to pay you whatever the S&P does if it goes up. Now, they're the number one purchasers of options in the world. They buy them hourly. What this means is, simply, if the S&P goes up 8%, they will pay you $80,000 on your million. How can they afford that? Because 40,000 of options easily double to 80. Okay, they're big boys and girls. They know what they're doing. If the S&P goes up 12, they'll pay 120,000. They may cap you based upon the price of options, but there are also some strategies where you can do no cap. And we've had clients that have been credited 25%, 61%, even using a strategy called multipliers, which I explain on another episode on this channel. You could earn 153% in the year 2021. Let's just keep it simple right now. The point is, if you guess wrong and the market tanks, the options expire worthless, but you didn't lose your million. And see, that's why we get more concerned about the return of our money instead of the return on the money when things get bad. So far, so good? Now, indexing then allows you to diversify into superior strategies. I could diversify and have that $1 million. I could have 300,000 linked to the S&P, 300,000 to the Dow Jones, 300,000 to the Russell 2000, and leave the last 100,000 sitting in the insurance company earning 4. I could do that, but you can diversify between indices, okay, or in the ways that they link it. So you can link 1 year point to point, which means if you linked in March of the year 2020 when the market dropped 30%, 1 year later in March of 2021, people who did that, they were able to earn up to the cap, but if they chose the no cap option, they ended up getting 61.33%. Incredible tax-free rate of return. So that is a 1 year high cap or maybe no cap. Maybe they capped you at 11%. A good IUL professional will help you understand how to diversify. But let's say you put 40% of your money in that. 40% of the million is in that one. 40% is in a 2 year. That means you're waiting 2 years to measure how much the S&P went up. And maybe there's a 19% cap, but that's 19% over 24 months. Let's say you have a 5 year. Now, 5 year means that you wait 5 years to see what the market did. There is no cap. And they will pay you whatever the market did in 5 years. And that's called a 5-year indexed account. Now, if you diversify, you may go 40% in this one, 40% in the 2 year, 20% in the 5 year. if you did that based upon 20-year periods, historically, you would have earned 11.3% average crediting rate by going 40, 40, 20. That's diversifying between 1 year, 2 year, and 5 year point to point. Ha! Do you know what my sons, who are professionals with IUL, told many of their clients to do? Hey, let's just have 50%, half of it in the 2 year with a 19% cap, the other half in a 5 year, okay, with no cap. If this is for long-term goals, you may want to consider this because the average is 14% based upon 20-year periods. Hello? Tax-free. So this is the message. You diversify by using several laser funds. I own several. My wife does. You can have 2 or more products or different companies. Okay, I use 3 or 4 different companies. You link to different indices: the S&P, the Dow Jones, the Barclays U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. You utilize various indexing strategies, like I've said, and you rebalance by meeting annually with a professional. When you do that, your rates of return will go from 7% up to 9%, up to 10%, even 14%, and some years 61% and 153%. This is incredible, and most financial advisors in America get a deer in the headlight look when I talk about this because they're never trained to do this. They're trained to churn your money in the market because they make money when they churn your money. And all too often, there's no predictability when your money's in the market. So here's what I want you to do. Claim your free copy of this book, The Laser Fund. It's my 11th book. It's been flying off of our warehouse shelves. It's actually 2 books in one. This side is about 200 pages, 14 chapters that has all the charts and graphs of how to diversify and create the foundation for a tax-free retirement, for example. If you learn more by stories and examples, you flip it over and read this, about 100 pages, 12 chapters. It has 62 actual client stories. You can read both books, okay? But here's how you claim your copy. You go to laserfund.com, L-A-S-E-R fund.com, or click on the link below, and you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I will pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you. If you like digital, or you want to listen and learn or watch and learn, there's options also for that. There's even an 18-hour masterclass that dives deeper than the book, taught by me and my 2 sons that are co-authors. They've been doing this for 2 decades with their clients. Now, folks, be sure and check out some of our online events, webinars, and even our virtual teaching like Retired by Design. This is about your brighter future and to make sure you don't outlive your money during your golden years. So here's to your brighter future.